Hi, Vandy.
Hi, Wendy.
How are you today?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Good. I'm really glad that the spring sweater
That worked out. That worked out.
it all just came together. It's like we're just like two sides of a very optimistic coin.
International Women's Day, and we coordinated.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes. Happy International Women's Day.
Same to you.
Thank you. So I'm going to let people kind of filter in a little bit. I'm going to check the just the stream out to LinkedIn and Facebook, make sure that looks good, and then we'll just kind of get started more formally.
Great.
LinkedIn looks good. We've got 5 people on so far. And Facebook, I'll be honest, if Facebook isn't my friend today, I might just give up on it. Although my mother will be very disappointed.
I think I'm the last holdout. I'm not on Facebook, so yeah, I'm not familiar with it. But
all right, Facebook looks good. So
good.
I'm going to close that out and get some comments enabled. So folks, welcome today to All Things Change. Happy International Women's Day. I'm really excited to be here with you all and with our special guest, Vandy Densmore. Vandy is the Chief HR Officer at Sage Family of Companies, which is in the hospice and palliative care area. And Vandy has an amazing background and career history in HR, working across a few different industries and doing some pretty important work as healthcare becomes so important these days. So Vandy, really happy to have you here.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So folks, as you're watching, if you have any comments, reactions, questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. And welcome, whether you're joining us live or on the replay at a later time on Facebook and on LinkedIn. So this is All Things Change. This is a weekly live stream that I do every Tuesday at noon. And each month I cover a theme, a topical theme. And this month for March is Lead Yourself. So did a piece last week about, what it means to be leading ourselves in today's, world of constant change. And today we're going to talk about values and leadership and how we define and differentiate ourselves through our values. This also has, to me, just like a really interesting lens through change, this world of change that we're in, because, from my perspective, we need values more than ever to keep us anchored in a world that's just constantly swirling. And there are so many questions, way more questions than we have answers. And so when we at least have our values clear, we can navigate that with a bit more sanity, more purpose, more confidence. And so I love this topic. And I must say that I especially love having Vandy here, because Vandy has this amazing LinkedIn profile. And I'm going to kind of go on a little bit of a detour from what I would normally do. And I'm just going to quickly read the first half of her About section in LinkedIn, because I think it's so relevant for today. So she says, throughout my tenure as an HR executive, I have often been told that I'm not like the usual HR. I learned that people appreciate my ability to quickly and deeply understand the business, my tendency to offer options instead of mandates, and my ability to see multiple sides of a situation with a desire to meaningfully connect with people. I believe in people first, not policies. I am passionate about doing the right thing, even when it is difficult or unpopular. I believe that everyone has something to contribute, and all employees deserve to have their voices heard. I care deeply about culture and creating a safe, inclusive work environment for all employees. So I'm going to just stop there. But that really struck me, because most of our About sections are, a couple of blurbs, not really, not too elaborate. But this seemed like it's like, Vandy kind of literally puts her values in a neon sign in her profile. It's do what you love. So Vandy, tell me about your thought process in developing that bio.
Happy to, and Thanks for reading that and for your compliments there. I did actually spend quite a bit of time on that and worked really hard on it, in all honesty. So I was working for a company that was divesting, and we divested the last company in June. So then I was looking for a new job. I knew that it was coming for a while. And I had the privilege of working with an amazing career coach, Carolyn Raitt from Clear Rock, and she gave me a lot of tools to get clarity on what I wanted in my next role. And part of that was really thinking about what is important to me. Everyone will say, well, I know what I like about my job and what I don't like about my job, but values are a little bit different. They're your guideposts. They're your star, so to speak. And what is it that I can't live without in my next role? And then how does that differentiate me from other HR leaders? And I struggled with that for a while because I had just been, well, this is a head of HR role or a chief people officer role. I'll apply, I'll interview, I might get it. So to be deliberate about these are the non-negotiables for me, and this is what is really important to me, I wanted that to come through on my profile because I've realized that I'm not for everybody, and that's okay. And not every company is for me, and that's okay.
Yes. And how did it feel to arrive at that conclusion? There's a big smile on your face as you said that.
Yeah, it felt really good to have that clarity. And in hindsight, it was always there. I had just never stated it as this is who I am. And I want to do the right thing. And this is what I care about. And I care about people, and I care about culture, and I care about collaboration. And of course, no one's going to say that they don't care about those things, but everyone has different values and different priorities of those values throughout their careers. And again, that's okay. But I wanted to be very clear on what mine were. So as opportunities came to me, I could evaluate them appropriately.
Yeah, I think it does help because you're right. All that, probably no one would say they don't value collaboration, but someone might work at an organization where they kind of know that it's more command and control, and say, well, she sounds great, but she might be kind of miserable here.
Right. Or, conversely, you can ask a lot of questions in the interview process about their approach to things and how decisions are made and things like that, and listen for that collaboration piece. And if it's not there, you need to probe deeper, or you might need to walk away if you have that privilege to do so.
Yeah, that's right. So let's talk about how your values or your awareness of your values have evolved over your career.
So this was the first time I'd ever really deliberately stated what my values were. And I don't know that they have changed significantly, but they have, again, changed in terms of priority. So earlier in my career, I might not have valued, for example, flexibility as much, but the pandemic just changed the world on its head, right? And I realized after working from home for almost 2 years that going back into the office 5 days a week was not what I wanted. I work really hard. I love what I do, but I also love being able to go for a walk when the weather permits, or throw in a load of laundry, or start dinner, or just make work for my life and not make my life work for work. And so that became a bigger priority for me since the pandemic. And the integrity piece, I think, really came to the forefront, the transparency and integrity, especially in my last role as we were going through the divesting process. It was probably one of the hardest leadership challenges that I had, because some people were losing their jobs, some people were going to the new company. I knew things before other people knew things. and to just try to get everyone comfortable with the uncomfortable and just telling people what I could when I could, that really solidified how important those two things were for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure that you're not alone. It's probably an understatement to say you're not alone in real, becoming more aware of the importance of flexibility through the pandemic. I think that's like such a critical one and such a great example of how circumstances can really help bring more focus around a value that maybe 5 years ago wouldn't have been on your top 5 if you were asked.
Right.
It's
Like,
sort of
doesn't
like,
everyone go to work every day? I
yeah.
don't know. Yeah.
And yeah, for that example, it's almost even like just like the awareness of possibility wasn't even really there as much. It's just sort of like, well, of course I have to go to the office every day. Of course I have, 10 business trips a year or whatever it is. So, but yeah, I think really that that values do evolve, and they come in and out of focus based on our circumstances and based on, as I kind of put it, just the accumulation of experiences in life that that bring us to where we are today. So the what you said about flexibility resonates, and that that the increasing awareness around transparency as a value, and that becoming clear because of the experience of needing to handle communication as in a certain way, and really having to think about what you want that to be. It makes a lot of sense. And I think, to some degree, our difficult experiences can really help shape our view of our values. I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
There is nothing more uncomfortable, in my opinion, than being in an organization that doesn't align with your values. It just doesn't feel good when you know that you don't fit. And while there are some things that you can do to make it more palatable, sometimes you can talk to your manager, sometimes as a leader you can do things on your own team, for example. But those negative experiences, there's nothing like that will just jump out and tell you what your values truly are. So I have been in organizations where they hoard information, where it's a competitive spirit. That's where I learned that collaborative was key. I don't want to have to compete with other leaders when we all have the same goal in terms of delivering quality patient care, in terms of financial goals, that type of thing. We should all be working together. And I wanted that collaborative spirit. And that's when you're not in that type of environment and that's important to you, that's tough. Same with information, transparency of communication. I need to have a good relationship with my CEO and the C-suite. Once everyone starts splintering off and siloing, it's just not good for the company. It's not good for the functions. It's not good for the customer, the patient. So it's just that was eye-opening for me as well, and just brought that really into very clear focus.
Yeah, a lot of the clients I work with are struggling with that very thing. They maybe joined a job, in the past 6 months or a year, and they're just kind of hitting that wall, and it's like a very draining experience, and it's unsettling for people. I think it unfortunately can lead to a lot of self-doubt when in fact it's just simply not the right place.
Right.
But it's a process to really come to that conclusion. Which brings me to another point that I want to get to. But first, I'm just going to pause here and say we have a comment from Kathy. Vandy, love how you are standing in the power of your values. My thoughts are, if leaders can learn each individual's values on their teams, they can gain understanding of who the individual is and how it ties to the values of the leader and the company values. So it sounds like Kathy's seeing how there's like almost like a triangle here of and a nice synergy of values informing other values. and in a virtuous way. And so congrats to both of us for bringing this to the forefront. Yes.
Well, and I know that one of the things we wanted to talk about is how values play a role in leadership. And Kathy, that's a great point. My leadership style is I like to know my team as people first and not what they can do in terms of the what they can do. I want to learn about them as people. I like to know, about their kids and about their pets and what they value. I will tell you I personally do not have children, but when we were in the process of the sale at my last company, almost everyone on my team had kids. And I had leaders calling me crying saying, camp was just canceled. This was the summer of 2020. What am I going to do with my kids? How am I going to make this work? And I was just thinking, oh my God, first of all, I'm so grateful that I don't have to worry about this for myself, but you do have to worry about it for your team. And that's where that value of flexibility comes in. If it's important to me and it's important to them, then I'm going to make it work for them to the extent that I can. And it's important to know what they value. If they happen to value financial stability, for example, then I know that those merit increases are going to be really important to them, and the bonuses are going to be important to them. So find out what's important to your people, and then try to make it an environment that they fit, right?
Mm-hmm. I think this is where a lot of companies have caught themselves unpleasantly surprised with the Great Resignation, just probably not really aware of how powerful that shift in mindset really is for people as employees, to have a leader who knows them and who cares about the whole picture and wants to support them through difficult times. I think if there were more of that in place, this concept of the Great Resignation might be a bit less. I think there's just so much that goes into that. That's not the only consideration, but
Right.
I think it is something that we collectively underestimated.
I 100% agree with that. And like I said, a couple of years ago, the world turned upside down. And one of the big differentiators now is values, company values, personal values, and people are willing to walk away if they don't align. And I 100% understand that not everyone has that opportunity. Sometimes you have to stay in jobs that your values are not aligned for a variety of different reasons, but then those people are looking, and guess what? There's a million jobs out there. So they'll find one eventually.
Yeah. Yep. And yet, I'm going to muddy the waters here a little bit and just talk about some of the complexities of values, because I think I've also seen, both as a coach and in my prior career as HR, that something manifests as a conflict of values, but really it's kind of a more nuanced, complex issue. And so I think sometimes, it just because we feel like we've landed in an organization where the values are strongly aligned doesn't mean conflict doesn't exist.
Right.
Doesn't mean that a strategy to honor that value may or may not align with what you exactly would have done, or may conflict with a different value that you prioritize that maybe your company doesn't. So what do you see in that space around just navigating the nuances of values in work?
It's a great question. And I don't want to be Pollyanna and say that everyone is going to find a company that perfectly aligns. I know that there are people out there who have found it, and kudos to them. I have found better matches than others. And again, I think while you probably won't share all of the values, you need to be crystal clear on the ones that you're willing. I don't want to use the word compromise, but the ones that you can prioritize a little bit lower. So I a great example in I happen to be in human resources. So a great example in HR is when you are doing a company reorganization, and my value is transparency. I firmly believe that you tell people the information that you have so they can do their best work. But when you're going through a reorg, you can't always share that information, and the information can change at the last minute. So even if you were to go out and say we're cutting 10% of the workforce, that information could change, and now you have done more damage to the organization than you would have if you had just waited. So that's one small but probably relatable example of when that's been really tough for me. And I think I mentioned earlier the sale of the companies. I knew that was happening probably about a year before my team. And I'm asking my team for information that I didn't normally ask for. I was putting off. I am huge on decision making, like let's go. I tend to have a faster pace, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, let's think about that and wait, and let's think about that and wait. And people are like, what is going on with Vandy lately? Why isn't she making decisions? And I couldn't say why, and it all made sense in hindsight, but that was tough too, because people knew that I was behaving differently, and I couldn't share it. But there are times when that's appropriate, and then there are times when you're just like, wow, this company just doesn't like to share information, and they see it as hoarding information, and that's not where I would want to be. But there are times that you have to kind of set that aside.
Yeah. What's coming together for me just listening to you share that is, I think for leaders in particular, there's, we may have, pretty good clarity on what we value. And then we need to think about how to embody that or protect that value at a big scale.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes that may mean that, an individual over here is scratching their head saying, Vandy usually approves that budget right away.
Right.
But you have to think about, what kind of worry or, possible information leaks, or, just like what the big picture looks like. And then figure out how to balance that value of transparency and with that big picture of what would happen for this whole group if this got out sooner than it was ready.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's a real common challenge for leaders, is just how do you scale that value, and how do you respond when someone holds you accountable to that value?
Right.
Because the more transparent we are about those values that we have, the more that's great for building trust. Actually, when we are just put a stake in the ground and say, I'm Vandy, this is what I'm about. And people love that, because it's like, all right, that now I know what Vandy's about. But wait a minute.
Wendy, you hit the nail on the head, because I'm very open with my team about my values. And so when I was not upholding those values, it caused confusion. I don't want to say it was distrust, because I had built up enough trust, but there was confusion throughout my team. And that's, again, that's where those values come into play when you're a leader. Is it gives people some guideposts on what's important to you as their leader, what's important to the organization. And then when you switch that, it can be very, very chaotic.
Yeah. So lots of nuances here with values, and so much to benefit from as we just establish who we want to be as a leader, how we want to show up as a leader, and some of those murkier waters around when values seem to contradict, when we have to scale those values up. Lots of great stuff that we've covered today. So some of the things I'm hearing, in addition to those last points, are that being really clear on your values can be such an incredibly useful tool, and just getting clear on what you're saying yes to, what you're saying no to in terms of career opportunities, and helping to reduce mismatch, make it more clear if you are in a mismatch situation, that is so and really, as we just said now, kind of a great way to build trust, as well as something that really needs to be kind of nurtured in order not to then kind of diminish trust. What are some other points you would like to add for people to take away with them today?
So other than getting clarity and really understanding that the importance of those values can change situationally over time, et cetera, I would say the one quote that I really love that I think has worked for me in a lot of situations, but in particular on values, is comparison is the thief of joy. So my values are not the right ones. They're the right ones for me. And they could be similar or dissimilar to yours, Wendy, or to other people who are listening. And that doesn't make them good or bad. So to just be careful about that piece, because I have chased what other people had, thinking that that's what I should have too, and put importance on the wrong things. And I just ended up in spaces that weren't healthy for me. So make sure that you're not assigning good or bad based on what somebody else's values are. Make sure that they're your own.
Yeah. I love that. That's a great perspective. And we're all susceptible to that comparison thief.
Yes.
So thanks for applying it to the lens of values. So Vandy, I know you're relatively new to your role with Sage Family of Companies. So congratulations on that appointment. Is there anything that you'd like to share with people about your organization? Anything going on?
So in terms of values, again, one of the reasons that I joined is just the mission is amazing. Hospice, palliative care, it's an amazing place to be. I would say recruiting is probably the biggest challenge that we have. Healthcare recruiting is really, really tough right now. But on day 7, I'm not sure what I can share other than, if you know any hospice nurses, send them my way. And I'm just really glad to be in an organization whose mission just really aligns with a lot of the things that I value personally.
Yeah. Thanks, Vandy. Well, good luck with the recruitment. It never gets easier with healthcare recruitment, unfortunately.
It does not.
Yeah, but hopefully some people listening like your style, like your values, and will check things out and connect with you. So,
Great.
well, thanks for joining. On my end, if you are interested in exploring any of these topics with a coach, I'm available to you, and you can learn more about my services and about me personally at wendyholtmark.com. You can sign up for my weekly email there, All Things Change, the email version. And I will be back next week for a bite-sized edition of All Things Change. So thank you again, Vandy, and we'll see everyone next week.
Thank you.